Lakshmi Prasanna, Assistant Professor, Department of ECE, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. In this session, we will discuss about assembler directives of 8086 microprocessor. So first we need to know what is meant by assembler directive. So assembler directives are directions for the assembler, linker and loader. Assembler directives are also some of the instructions that we will use in the program while writing the assembly level language programming. Generally, while writing the assembly level language programming, instruction set and addressing modes and also assembler directives are very important. So here we need to discuss about assembler directives in this session. So here assembler directives are instructions that are entered in the source code along with the assembly level language programming. That means along with the instructions, these assembler directives, which are called special instructions, will also be entered in the program. Now, so here assembler directives are directions for the assembler. Not only for the assembler, directions for the assembler, linker and loader also. Okay. So these assembler directives will indicate how an operand or section of the program is to be processed. So here generally these assembler directives are called special instructions because these assembler directives are used to perform some special functions. So already we have studied the instructions that are present in the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor. They are just called instructions. They will be performing their function. Those are the instructions which are converted into machine code. But here, coming to the assembler directives, these are called special instructions because they are instructions only for the assembler, linker and loader. So the instructions that comes under these assembler directives, they are not going to be converted into machine code. That is the main difference between the instructions that comes under the instruction set of 8086 and the instructions that comes under the assembler directives. They will be converted into machine code, whereas these assembler directives, which are called special instructions, they will not be converted into machine code. Now, so here the instructions which can be translated into machine code by the assembler. That means here the instructions, generally it can be classified into two types. Okay. So some of the instructions that can be converted into machine code, they comes under one category, and some instructions which are not going to be converted into machine code, they will be coming under other category. So we have studied in the previous sessions about the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor. So in that instruction set of 8086 microprocessor, we have studied about different classifications like data transfer instructions, arithmetic and logical instructions, program control transfer instructions, machine control instructions, shift and rotate instructions, flag manipulation instructions, so string instructions. So the instructions that are coming under all these classifications, they are coming under one category. So all that instructions will be converted into machine code. Machine code will be developed for such type of instructions. But whereas the another classification of instructions are called special instructions, they comes under assembler directives. So whereas the instructions that are coming under assembler directives, for them, no machine code will be developed. So here, for some instructions, machine code will be developed, and for some instructions, no machine code will be developed. They are called special instructions that comes under assembler directives. Now we will discuss about all such special instructions that are coming under assembler directives and how they are going to tell to the assembler what is the function it has to be performed. Now, so there are some special instructions in the assembly level language program which are not a part of the instruction set. So that means they are called assembler directives. So the instructions which we have studied in the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor, they are different. But now we are learning some special instructions, new instructions, which are coming under assembler directives. Now, so another name of assembler directives are pseudo operations. So assembler directives can also be called as pseudo operations. Now, so here during assembly level language programming, we are going to write the program by including the instructions that comes under the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor, and also by using these special instructions which are called assembler directives. So while writing the program, they will be going to the microprocessor and the microprocessor will be executing the instructions. But when that instructions are executed, the instructions that comes under 8086 microprocessor instruction set will be generating the machine code, whereas the special instructions that are coming under the assembler directives, for such instructions, machine code will not be developed. Now, so let us consider a simple program in order to clearly understand what are called the instructions that comes under the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor and what are different special instructions that comes under the assembler directives. That means for which instructions machine code will be developed and for which instructions no machine code is developed. Okay. So here, for example, we have considered the program. This program, whatever the instructions we have used in this program is related to perform 8-bit addition operation. So this program is written completely using the instructions that are present in the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor and also assembler directives. So for example, if you take here, so already we have studied about the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor. So in this program, if we see some instructions like here move, and here there is again for this line also there is move instruction, okay, and here move instruction is used, and next line add instruction is used, and again move instructions are used, and here int interrupt instruction is used. So all these are the instructions that are available and we have studied in the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor. So for all these instructions that comes under the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor, when it is executed by 8086, machine code will be developed. So these comes under the normal instructions. That means the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor. Now, so if we consider here some lines like data segment, and here some instructions, special instructions like DB. Okay, so DB represents defined byte, and some instructions like data and S represents end segment. Okay, so here code segment, and next, so this is assume, CS colon code and DS colon data. Okay, and also this code NDS and end star. So if we see all these instructions which we did not learn up to now, okay, so these instructions we did not studied in the instruction set of 8086 microprocessor. Okay, so these are called special instructions. So all these instructions will be coming under the assembler directives. So when these instructions are executed, for these instructions, machine code will not be developed. Like for example, data segment, DB, data NDS, code segment, assume, code NDS, end start. When all these lines are executed, no machine code will be developed. Okay, so these are the differences between the normal instructions and special instructions, and for which machine code is developed and for which instructions machine code will not be developed. Now, so let us discuss about the special instructions that comes under the assembler directives in detail. Now, so the first assembler directive is assume. Okay. So here, these are assembler directives, means these are instructions for the assembler, linker and loader. So if we are writing the instruction assume in the program, how the assembler directive or how the assembler is going to receive that, how the assembler is going to understand when it is seeing that assembler directive. Okay. So these instructions will directs the assembler in such a operation. So assume means it is going to assume the name of the logical segment. So assume is a directive which is used to tell the assembler that the name of the logical segment that should be used for specified segment. So we know that in 8086 microprocessor, totally there are 4 segments available. It is nothing but 4 segment registers available. So 4 segment registers are code segment, data segment, stack segment and extra segment. So this assume is an assembler directive which indicates the name of the logical segment that we are using in the program. Now, so for example, if you consider here assume CS colon code. Okay. So this is the assume. It is an assembler directive. So it directs the assembler that the name of the logical segment name is CS. So CS represents code segment. And we know that in the code segment, code, that is the instructions related to that program, will be stored in this code segment. Code will be present in the code segment, which consists of some set of instructions need to perform some specific operation. Okay. So assume CS colon code means it tells the assembler that the name of the logical segment, it tells the assembler that the name of the logical segment is code. Okay. So why? Because here, if we are using code, we are going to use here CS colon. Okay. So that CS represents code segment where the code is specified. So it tells the assembler that the name of the logical segment is code and it contains. So what the code consists of? The code consists of instructions, statements related to the program. That means which is used to perform some specific operation. Okay. Now, and the next example you can consider here, assume DS colon data. Okay. So here we know that 4 segment registers are available: code segment, data segment, stack segment and extra segment. So we know program will be present in the code segment, data or variables will be present in the data segment, stack related information will be present in the stack segment register. Okay. So similarly, if you write here assume DS colon data, it is going to tell the assembler that the name of the logical segment is data segment and data is resided in that segment. Okay. So assume DS colon data means logical segment is data segment. So the name of the logical segment is data segment and it contains data. Okay. So it is going to tell the assembler that the name of the logical segment is data segment and it is going to store the data inside that. Okay. So this is the purpose of this assembler assume. It is going to tell the assembler the name of the logical segment. And next assembler directive is DB. Okay. So here DB represents define byte. So we know that byte means 8 bits. Okay. So it tells the assembler that to reserve 8 bytes of memory. So in that 8 bytes, so the data what we are specifying in this will be stored. The memory will be initialized with the values what you are using with the help of this DB assembler directive. Okay. So DB represents defined byte. It is going to reserve a byte of memory location. So in that reserved byte of memory location, the information what we are specifying in this assembler directive will be stored. So here coming to the example, so if you consider here ranks DB, so this DB is an assembler directive, byte, defined byte. And here the variables are declared here. So 01, 02, 03 and 04H. So the assembler directive is going to reserve a byte of memory location, and in that byte of memory location, all the variables specified here will be stored. Okay. So here it directs the assembler. It directs the assembler to reserve. It directs the assembler to reserve 4 memory locations. 4 memory locations. So why here it is only 4 memory locations means here only 4 numbers have been declared. So it is going to reserve only 4 memory locations. So it directs the assembler to reserve 4 memory locations for a list named ranks. So here this ranks is the name, and initialize them with the above specified 4 values. Okay. So like this, how many values we are going to declare here? So the assembler directive is going to direct the assembler that to reserve those many memory locations in order to store the variables declared in this instruction. And next as example, message DB good morning. So here this good morning is a message which is consisting of some characters. Okay. But here if you see, this is DB, which is called defined byte, and it comes under assembler directive. So it is also going to reserve some memory locations in order to store this string. But in the memory location, this string will be stored in the form of ASCII equivalent. Okay. So when we are using this line, it reserves. It means the assembler is going to reserve number of bytes of memory equal to the number of characters. So how much amount of memory it is going to reserve means it is dependent on the number of characters that this string consists of. Okay. So it is going to reserve the number of bytes of memory equal to the characters present in the string named message. So here the name of this string is message, and initialize them by ASCII equivalent. Okay, so all these characters will be stored in the memory which we have reserved in the form of ASCII equivalent. So this is what about defined by assembler directive. And next assembler directive is DW. So DW represents define word. So we know word means 16 bits. Okay. So same as DB, DW also. But it is going to reserve 16 bits. Okay. So here when DW, if you are writing DW in the program, the assembler is going to reserve a word. So it is going to reserve a word in a memory location. And in that word reserved memory location, the specified values in that particular instruction will be stored. So coming to the example here, so if you write this is the name, and this DW represents define word. It is an assembler directive. Okay, and here the data is 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 5, 6, 7, 8. So these all specified values from here to here. So all these are the specified values that will be stored in the byte reserved memory location. Okay, so here this declares an array of 3 words. Okay, so word means 16 bits. So array of 3 words. Why? Because here this is the first word, second word and third word. Okay, so it is going to declare an array of 3 words and initialize with specified values. So what are all the specified values? Here in 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 5, 6, 7, 8. So all these are the specified values. Okay, so how they will be stored means, especially here, if it is a 16-bit data, so these 2 bits are called lower order bits and these 2 bits are called higher order bits. Okay, so these 2 bits are called lower order bits and these 2 bits are called higher order bits. So in the memory location, while they are stored in that particular reserved memory location, how the 16-bit values will be stored means, here the 16-bit value consists of lower byte and upper byte. Okay, so especially here lower bytes will be stored in the lower memory address. Lower bytes will be stored in the lower memory address, whereas the higher bytes, will be stored in the higher memory address. Okay. Now, same as DB and DW, DQ is one of the assembler directive. So DQ represents define quad word. Okay, so DQ represents define quad word. So quad means 4. Okay, so the assembler directive, it is going to reserve 4 words of memory location. Now, so here 4 words can also be called as 8 bytes. Okay, and in that reserved 4 words or 8 bytes of memory location, all the specified values in the instruction, those values will be stored. Now, so similarly here DT is another assembler directive. So DT represents define 10 bytes. 10 bytes. So it directs the assembler to reserve 10 bytes of memory in order to store the specified values which are present in the instruction. Now, and next assembler directive is end. Okay, so there are different assembler directives related to this end instruction. Okay, so we have end, end P, end S. Okay, so all these assembler directives are different. So here, if it is simply end, it represents end of the program. End of the program. Okay, so here end of the program means if you are writing any program, at the end of the program, that means the last instruction of the program should be this end assembler directive. Okay, so it directs the assembler that the program has been completed, and this end assembler directive should be written compulsory at the last statement of the program. Okay, so when it is executed, the assembler directive will understand that this is the end of the program and no lines are present after this instruction. Okay, so for example, in the program, if we are writing some set of lines after this end instruction, those lines will not be executed. So those lines which we are writing after end assembler directive will be ignored. And next assembler directive is here, end P. Okay. So end P represents end of the procedure. End of the procedure. So we know that while writing the assembly level language programming, if we want to execute some set of lines repeatedly, which will perform some specific operation, we are going to write that specific set of lines separately, which we can call it as a procedure or subroutine. Okay. So for that procedure, we have to write the name of the procedure, and we should also tell to the assembler that it is a procedure. And that procedure will consist of some set of lines, instructions, which need to be executed to perform specific operation. So soon after all the lines are completed in the procedure, the last line of the procedure should be the assembler directive end P. So this end P represents end of the procedure. When the assembler directive executes this end P instruction, it understands that this is the end of the procedure. So even in this also, if we are writing any set of lines related to the procedure after end P instruction, those lines will be ignored. They will not be executed once if this end P is executed by the assembler. Okay. So end P assembler directive is used along with the name of the procedure. And at the end of the procedure, you have to write this end P assembler directive, which says that it is end of a procedure. Now, so if you consider here, this is the example. Okay. So if you wanted to perform, so see here square number. So this is the name of the procedure. So for example, if you wanted to write a procedure or a subroutine which needs to execute the square of a given number, and we are writing it as a procedure. Okay. So we have to consider this PROCE. Okay. So this is one assembler directive which says that it is a procedure and the name of the procedure is square number. So whatever the name we are writing before the PROCE assembler directive, it indicates the name of that particular procedure. So in that, we are going to write some set of lines, instructions, okay, which is related to the program which gives the square of a number. And after the lines, we have to write here the same procedure name by writing the assembler directive end P. So end P represents end of the procedure. Okay. So here square number, it represents starts the procedure. Okay. And this is the procedure name. Okay. So inside you will have some steps related to the program. And here the last statement will be the same procedure name along with this end P assembler directive. Okay. So when it is executed by the assembler, it says it is end of the procedure. Okay. So this is the assembler directive end P. And next assembler directive is end S. Okay. So end S represents end of the segment or end of the logical segment. As we have studied, the segment name can be either code segment, data segment, stack segment or extra segment. The logical name of the segment can be any of these four. Okay. After writing the code related to that logical segment, at the last of that segment, we have to compulsory write end S. Okay. So starting will be the logical segment initialization. After writing some set of lines related to that segment, the last you have to compulsory write end S. So how many segments we have used in the program? For each segment, after completion of each segment, you have to end that particular segment by writing the assembler directive called end S. Okay. Now, so here this end S assembler directive is used to name the segment to indicate the end of the logic segment, any segment. So for example, if you consider here code segment, okay. So this code segment is the name of the logical segment. Now we will write some set of lines related to this code segment. But here at the last, the same code segment only, but we have to write here code NDS. If it is data segment, you have to write here data segment. After writing the lines related to the data segment, the last line of that particular data segment should be data NDS. So like how many logical segments we are using? For each segment, you have to end that particular segment by writing the logical segment name along with the assembler directive and yes. So here code segment is used. So we are ending that segment code. If data segment is used, we have to end that segment data NDS. Okay. So here this is code segment which represents start of segment containing code. Okay. And the last is code NDS which represents end of code segment. Okay. And so this is the main difference between the end assembler directives and end P and end S. Now coming to the next assembler directives, here the next one is EQU. So EQU represents equate. Okay. So this assembler directive, generally we have to use this EQU assembler directive at the starting of the program. Why? Because here if we wanted to change any symbol or any value in the program, that should be declared to some name. So here if it is the name, if you use this EQU to that name, so wherever the name is there in the program, if you change that variable at the starting, in the entire program, that particular name will be changed to that particular value. Okay. So EQU is an assembler directive which is used to give a name to some values or to a symbol. Okay. So you have to use this EQU assembler directive with the name, with the help of the name or to a symbol. Okay. So wherever the name is there in the program or wherever the symbol is there in the program, that symbol or name will be equated to the value what you are going to give in the program at the starting. Okay. So no need to go for the all the steps wherever the variable is, and no need to change the value wherever the variable is. Okay. So once if you change the value at the starting, throughout the program, wherever that particular name or value is, that means symbol is, it will be changed to that particular value. Okay. Now, so each time the assembler finds the name in the program, what it is going to do means, it is going to replace that particular name or symbol with the value, what we are going to initialize at the starting. So, how many times you wanted to change? You can change simply at one place in the program. But since you are using this equate assembler directive, throughout that program, that particular name will be changed to that value what you are initializing. Now, so for example, if you see here, you are taking the name factor and you are equating that to 0, 3. Okay. So for example, in the lengthy program, which consists of some set of instructions, in that program, wherever it find the name factor, that name will be changed to or equated to a value 0, 3. Okay. So like that, how many times if you wanted to change, you can change by only changing the value which you have assigned to a particular name. So factor equate 0, 3. Now add AL comma factor. For example, if the program consists of some set of lines, okay, so wherever it found the name factor, that particular name will be replaced with this 0, 3 value. So no need to go for the complete program and change the factor as 0, 3. So simply if we change the value 0, 3 here in the complete program, the value factor, because here the factor is initialized, the name factor will be equated to a value 0, 3. And next assembler directive is even. Okay. So it tells the assembler to increment the location of the counter to the next even address if it is not there in the even address. So here, what is the necessity of increasing the location of the counter to the even address? Okay, so what will happen if the location of the counter is there in the odd address? So here the location of the counter can be changed to the even address if it is not there in the even address by using the assembler directive even. Okay, so just if it is there in the odd address, by simply involving that NOP instruction, we can make the counter incremented to the even address if it is not there in the even address. Okay, so what happens if the counter is there in the odd address means, if the counter is there in the odd address, in order to read the information from the memory, the microprocessor requires 2 bus cycles. Okay, so when the counter is there in the odd address, in order to read the information from the memory or data from the memory, it requires 2 bus cycles. But if we see that the counter is there in the even address, so in order to read the information or data from the memory, it requires only 1 bus cycle. Okay, so that is why by using this assembler directive, we have to see that the counter should be incremented and it has to be in the even address if it is there in the odd address. Okay, simply by involving the NOP instructions. So a series of words can be read much more quickly if the counter is there in the even address compared to the odd address. And next assembler directive is group. So here group represents group of related segments. Okay. So when this group assembler directive is used in the program, it is going to declare all the segments as one logical segment and it is going to generate one exe file. Okay. So here the group directive is used to group the logical segments named after the directive into only one logical segment, and then it is going to develop the exe file. Okay. So for example, if we consider here, group is a assembler directive. Okay. So program is the name here. Group is the assembler directive. But here, the logical segments in this example we have considered, one is code segment, another one is data segment, and another one is stack segment. Okay. So we are using group assembler directive here. So these 3 logical segments will be considered as a single group and it is going to develop the exe file. Okay. So here when this instruction is executed, it directs the assembler to prepare exe file, that is executable file, exe file such that so here the 3 segments are code, data and stack. Okay. So such that the code, data and stack must belong to same group. So all these three logical segments will be belonging to same group, and especially all these three things will be lying within 64 kilobytes. Okay, and lie within 64 kilobytes. Okay, so this is the importance of this group assembler directive. So it is going to group all the logical segments and it is going to develop the exe file considering all this as a single segment. And the segment also size will be lying in below, that is around 64 KB only. And so next assembler directive is name. Okay, so it represents logical name of the segment. Logical name of the segment. Okay, so this name represents the logical name of the segment. So it is used to assign a name to the assembly level language programming. Now, so the module may be referred to as by its declared name. So like for example, if you have seen the square number, okay, so all those comes under the name of that particular procedure. And next assembler directive is offset. And we know offset means it is the assembler directive which is going to show the displacement. Okay, so here this is an assembler directive which is used to determine the displacement or offset named data item or procedure from the start of the segment which contains it. Okay, so for example, if you are writing here move bx comma offset prices. Okay, so here is the offset assembler directive. Offset assembler directive which is going to indicate the value of a displacement. And next assembler directive is org. Okay, so org represents origin. That means from which address the memory allotment has to start. Okay, origin of the memory allotment. So for example, if you are not using this org assembler directive, the assembler is going to allocate the memory locations by default from 0. That is 000H. Okay. Now, so this org represents origin. So it is going to direct the assembler to start the memory allotment for a particular segment. Okay. Block or code from the declared address in the org statement. So if you are not using that org statement, by default, it is going to allocate the memory from the address 0000H. Okay. So for example, if you are writing this org 200H, okay, so it means that org 0200H. So saying that the memory allotment has to be starting from 200H. Okay. So when you are writing this org 200H, it is going to direct the assembler that the memory allotment has to start from the starting address 200H. Okay. So here the location counter will get initialized to, so here we have used 200H. Okay. So from 200H, the memory allotment will be starting. So initialize it to the address 0200H instead of 0000H. Okay. So if you are not using this any org value, the memory allotment default will be starting from 0000H. Now, so the next assembler directive is PROC. So it represents procedure. PROC represents procedure. Okay. So when by writing this assembler directive, it directs the assembler to identify the start of the procedure. So procedure is a small program which consists of some set of lines that will be performing some specific task. Okay. So in order to say that it is a procedure, we have to indicate that procedure name along with the assembler directive called PROC. Now, so for example, if you see here, this is smart PROC for. Okay, so here this PROC is a procedure, indicating that it is a procedure, and here the procedure name is smart. Okay, smart NDP. So already we have seen NDP assembler directive. NDP assembler directive represents end of the procedure. Okay, so wherever we have indicated this PROC saying that it is a starting of the procedure with the procedure name, after writing all the set of lines related to that procedure which is going to perform specific task, at the end of that procedure we have to use the same procedure name along with the assembler directive called NDP, saying that it is a end of the procedure. Now, next assembler directive is extern and public. So extern represents external and public represents public. So these two assembler directive represents how to use the variables and how to use from the same variables from one module to the another module. Okay, so if we are using the assembler directive extern, it directs the assembler that the variables or labels or procedures, whatever we have used in this extern, okay, have been used here, that have been declared somewhere in the program. Okay. So here the other module which we have indicated and used in this extern is nothing but the names, procedures and labels actually appear, and they must be declared public using this public directive. Okay. So for example, if you want to write a procedure, okay, so which is named, for example, if you want to write a procedure named as a factorial as module 1, which is present in module 2. So in such a case, what we have to do means, we have to declare this module 2 as extern and module 1 as public. But before using that, see that here in this module 2 should be ending and starting with the segment and NDS. Okay. And next assembler directive is global. So the name itself says here, the variables, procedures, labels, whatever we have declared under this assembler directive can be used by anyone. Like it can be used in the public or it can be used by external. Okay. So the labels, variables, constants, procedures, whatever. Okay. If they are used in the global assembler directive, it means they can be used by other modules of the program. So other modules of the program means they can be the same variables what we have declared globally can be used in the public or external. So public or external. And so here we have written global divisor. So this global is a assembler directive. Okay, and this divisor is a variable which we have declared globally. So the same divisor can be used in public as well as in external also. Can be used anywhere in the program. And next assembler directive is PTR. So this PTR represents pointer. So this PTR assembler directive is going to say the data type. Okay. So this PTR operator is going to specify a data type. That means, so if you see the example here, it is written increment BX. But here if you see this PTR, it is a assembler directive. Okay. So here the data type, this is the data type, that is a byte or word. The data type may be byte or word. So whatever the data type is, the data type should be used as a prefix to this PTR assembler directive. Okay. So this increment BX, so it represents increment PX by byte. Okay, why byte means here we have declared the data type as byte. Okay, so if we are using instead of byte as word, so this increment of the bx value by byte, here it will be word. And next assembler directive is for PTR. Okay, so here for PTR, so we have seen in the instructions also for and near instructions. So for instruction represents, for means it is present out of the segment. Okay, so here this assembler directive will indicate that it is not available within the segment. It is available out of the segment. So since it is present out of the segment, it is required to have 32-bit address. So why 32-bit address means 16-bit to have the value of the segment address and 16-bit to have the value of the offset address. Okay, so that is why here 32-bit address is required, because it is for. For represents which is present out of the segment. So in order to find the address which is present out of the segment, compulsory segment address and offset address is required. So that is why in this 32-bit, okay, so 2 bytes are related to offset address and 2 bytes are related to segment address. So for example, if you see here, jump for PTR label. Okay, so this for is a assembler directive which indicates that it is not present within the segment. Now, so similarly, the next assembler directive is near PTR. So near PTR represents near pointer. So as we know here, near means it will be present within the segment. Okay. So here near PTR is present within the same segment and the address will be indicated with the help of 16-bit only. Okay. So if it is present within the segment, no segment address is required specially. Only offset address is required. So by using this 16-bit, that too, it is required only to find the offset address. Okay. No need of segment address because it is present within the segment. Only offset address is required. So that is why only 16-bit address is enough. Now, here, if you see the example here, jump near PTR label. So this near PTR is an assembler directive. So which indicates that it has to jump to the address which is present in the same segment. And next assembler directive is here type. Okay. So this type represents type of the logical segment. Type of the logical segment. Okay. So here we have different segments, logical segments, code segment, data segment, stack segment and extra segment. Okay. So this type is an assembler directive which indicates the type of the logical segment. So here this assembler directive determines the type of a variable and it determines the number of bytes specified to that variable. So for example, if you see byte type variable, okay. So if here this type is a assembler directive, okay. But to this assembler directive, byte is used as a prefix, okay. So what it indicates here, byte type means assembler, okay. So byte means only 8 bits. So byte type variable means assembler will give a value assembler will give a value 1. Okay. So similarly, if it is word type variable, assembler is going to give a value 2. But here word, it means 16-bit. Similarly, if it is double word, the assembler directive is going to give a value 4. Because it is double word, 4 bytes are required. And so move AX comma type word string. Okay. So here this is type. It represents the assembler directive. Okay. But here this is word which represents the type of a variable. So here the type of a variable is word. Okay. So that is why the assembler directive is going to give a value 2, because for word the value given by the assembler directive is 2. Now the next assembler directive is segment. Okay. So this says the logical segment name. It says the logical segment name. Now, so this assembler directive is going to indicate the start of the logical segment, whatever the logical segment is. Okay. So here it is code segment. So this segment is an assembler directive, but the name of the logical segment here is code. And next assembler directive is short. Okay. Sorry. So it represents, short means it mainly represents the displacement value. Okay. So it is used to tell the assembler that only a 1 byte displacement is needed to a code to perform a jump instruction. Okay. So when this short instruction is executed, it is going to tell the assembler the jumping should be performed within the displacement, within the range minus 128 to plus 127 bytes only. Okay. So the short assembler directive is mainly going to say the value of a displacement, and the jump, wherever the displacement should be performed, it should be in the range between minus 128 to plus 127 bytes only. Now, so jump, short, label. Okay. So here jump is the operation, but here the assembler directive we have indicated only short label. Short label means it is called short jump. Short jump, displacement within the range minus 128 to plus 127 bytes only. So this is what about the assembler directives of 8086 microprocessor. So these assembler directives are called pseudo operations, and for these assembler directives, machine codes will not be developed. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.